My name is Thomas and welcome to my channel. Today I'm tinkering on this Jeep Grand Cherokee. We're talking the good, we're talking the bad, and we're talking the ugly. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton. Let's get right into the information. To start off with, a short history lesson. Because Jeep is all about their heritage, and you can see that because of the 7 slits they have on every single one of their vehicles on the front grille, as well as the date they started making vehicles engraved in the bottom of the steering wheel. This is the 4th generation Jeep Grand Cherokee that came out in 2011, but the 1st gen came out in 1993, then the 2nd in 1999, and the 3rd in 2005.
The all-new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited.
And this was a big hit since it was such a drastic upgrade from the 3rd generation. Sales have only grown over the last 10 years. That's right, this generation has been around now for almost a full decade, making this the longest running version of the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Of course, over the years they have made minor changes to keep it fresh, competitive, and up to date. There is a 5th generation on its way, set to be unveiling late this year as a 2021 model, but I'll talk more about that at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around to find out more about where Jeep is taking the Grand Cherokee. History class over, I want to focus on what makes this a Jeep Grand Cherokee and sets it apart from the rest of the competition. But if you're here just to find out if it has comfy leather heated seats, the answer is yes. It has all the amenities you'd expect on a car of this level, like a sunroof, a heated leather steering wheel, the heated leather seats, the automatic back door, steering wheel buttons, a touchscreen with a reversing camera, and all the rest. So let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Starting off with the good, there's actually quite a lot to talk about. The first is this has the best-in-class towing capacity, sitting at 3,265 kilograms or 7,200 pounds. And secondly, there are truly an amazing amount of trim levels for the new Jeep Grand Cherokee that can crave your thirst for both power and a higher level of luxury. The SRT version of the Grand Cherokee's existence doesn't just make every other Grand Cherokee cooler, but if you get that trim level, it gives you a ridiculous amount of power to what already feels like a very sporty SUV. In fact, if you go with any of the trim levels, you're going to get a car that feels sporty and aggressive compared to its competition. This version that I have with me here has the 3.6-liter Pentastar engine, and if you're after luxury, then Jeep has you covered there as well, as they've given you trim levels with the Jeep Grand Cherokee that will rival that of a Range Rover. But that's not all. With those trim levels, you're also getting a considerable amount of engine options, which all have a rhyme and reason for existing. Everything from the engine you get in the SRT to the one in this that I've already mentioned, which is essentially bulletproof and will run forever. And on top of that, it's super lightweight because it's completely made of aluminum. Now this Grand Cherokee has the trim level that Jeep has named Limited, and with this trim level I'm getting paddle shifters. That's right, paddle shifters on an SUV like this, which not only adds another level of functionality, but also doubles the cool factor. And lastly on the good list is the oil filters. Somebody at Jeep had the amazing idea of making a different type of oil filter. So they created this versus your standard oil filter here, and they put it on top of the engine versus underneath the car. So if you're watching this and you're never going to change your own oil, this won't matter to you. But for someone like myself who does my own oil changes, this will make my life so much easier because I just get to reach inside here and change the oil filter. So as you can see, this Jeep is over-engineered in a couple of good ways, but it's also over-engineered in a couple of bad ways. But just before I move on with the bad, I want to share a fun fact. Did you know that depending on what engine you get, you'll have a different configuration of exhaust system when it comes to the Grand Cherokee? For example, this has the Pentastar V6 engine, so I get 1 exhaust tip, but you'll get 2 exhaust tips, 1 on each side, if you go with either the diesel or the SRT version. So what's wrong with the new Jeep Grand Cherokee? Why wouldn't you buy one? Well, if you're like me and you like working on your vehicles and doing things yourself, then you'll find certain things essentially impossible to do on this vehicle without going to a mechanic. Something as simple even as changing the bulbs. So if one of these dies, it's not as easy as just removing the unit and replacing it. You have to go to a mechanic and they have to remove all of the components here and then come over to the other side, remove all of the components over here, and then they can get inside just to change 1 bulb, and that'll still take them around 2 hours to do, which can really add up. And I see why they did it, because that's a lot of money for them when you have cars rolling in with bulbs that are dead. What I just did there was hit a button on the inside that then opened this to fuel it up. But this is a Jeep. If I take this on the back roads or off roads or somewhere where I need a jerry can to fill up, you'd think I'd be able to take my jerry can, plug it in, and fill it up. But that is not the case. It comes pouring back out, and the reason is because this nozzle is not the perfect size. So essentially, there is a second system in place to stop somebody from coming along and putting orange juice in your fuel tank, which I understand, but I think is a little unnecessary since it's already locked. If you want to use your jerry can, they've given you this little tool that you can find with your spare tire. All you have to do is plug that in, and now you can fill up with a jerry can. But I can promise you, I have hand on my heart, there is somebody out there who needed to fill up their car. They had a jerry can, they were ready to go, and they just didn't read the sticker on the inside and then never found this, and then got a little confused and they were stuck. And I just think it's a bit too much. It's unnecessary when you already have it, so you can't access it from the outside. Now, both of those are subjective because maybe neither matter to you, so let's talk about the ugly. And I'm not talking about the looks of the vehicle, because I actually think it looks pretty dang good, especially for being a car that hasn't been redesigned since 2011. Let's talk the really, really bad. Now, the main thing for me is the fact that this SUV does not handle in the winter as well as almost any of its competitors. Even the Nissan Murano, which is another V6 SUV, I have driven that extensively, handles way better in the winter than this. I'm just disappointed that it doesn't handle better. And I'm not putting it down to the fact it's got a 4x4 system versus an all-wheel drive system, because this has an all-time or a full-time 4x4 system, which is essentially an all-wheel drive system. Anyway, I'm putting it down to the fact that the steering is very numb and dull, and it's not responsive. I want to sit in a car and feel like I'm connected to it, kind of like how it works in the movie Avatar. Okay, maybe not exactly like that, but you know what I mean. I'm just getting no feedback. There's no response from this steering wheel, and I expect something. It feels weird to drive. While sitting in this seat, I feel perfectly comfy. While it's a sportier suspension, I'm still comfy. I can go over bumps without breaking my back, but there's something about the steering that really bugs me, and I feel like it affects your driving everywhere you go, especially in the winter. So who should buy a 4th generation Jeep Grand Cherokee? Well, if you're looking for essentially an affordable Range Rover, then this is the vehicle for you. Something that is a sportier SUV that handles well on dry roads and in nice weather, then look no further, because this is the most luxurious SUV in its class that you'll find in 2020 for your day-to-day commute. But don't buy a 4th generation Jeep Grand Cherokee if you want to do any more than an oil change by yourself without paying a trained mechanic, if you want to do any winter driving, if you want to do any off-roading, and if you want a Jeep for essentially being a Jeep. They definitely took a different direction with this SUV, and whether you like it or not, this is now the reality we live in, and I feel like the 5th generation is going to lean even more into this. There's so much about this vehicle that I like, and there's so much about this vehicle that I don't like. I'm honestly very torn myself. And to sum it up, I've already made this comparison many times in this video, and I'll do it one more time. This is just an affordable Range Rover. When you look at a Range Rover, it's just so a wealthy person can say they drive a 4x4 SUV. It's not so they can go and do some crazy winter trips or go and do some wicked off-road trails. It's just so they have that luxury aspect to their life, and this is just a toned down version of exactly that. If you can wait, I would recommend holding on to your money until we see the 5th generation. It's said to be riding on a version of the Alfa Romeo platform, have a 4-cylinder V6 and V8 options, and I'm sure there'll be a plug-in hybrid version of sorts as well. Maybe even a turbo thrown on the 4-banger too. Of course, I don't see them ditching their Hellcat everything mindset, so I'm sure that we'll see some sort of monstrous SRT or Trackhawk edition as as well. It's also rumored to be getting a third row of seating soon after launching. Nissan released a similar package called the Family Package with the Rogue in 2014, but discontinued it after 2017, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes for Jeep. I do know that they will be living up to the Grand in Grand Cherokee more than ever when it comes to the interior design and available features. I'm also very happy to hear that it's rumored to have a longer wheelbase. They're saying it's to make it more spacious, and while that's true, I'm sure that it's also an attempt to make the handling better during the winter. Hopefully they fix the numb steering as well. But now I want to hear from you guys on what you think of this SUV. If you've owned one of these in the past and you have a story, or if you're looking to buy one of these and you have some questions, just let me know down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and like, it really helps out the channel. My name is Thomas, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. And of course, a huge thank you to my mother who lent me her 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee during quarantine so I can keep making these videos.